Hello, I'm Shelby, and this is where I talk about books and stuff. So since this is my first video, I figured I'd do the mid-year Freakout Tag. I've seen it all over YouTube and Instagram, and I've really enjoyed seeing everyone's picks. I know that July is almost over, but I figured better late than never, and I'm going to hop on this trend. So as of the end of June, I'd read 69 books in total this year. It's been a really good reading year for me, and I've loved most of the books I've read. So I look forward to getting into my picks for this tag. So the first question is the best book I've read so far this year. Technically, the best book I've read this year is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. That's actually my favorite book of all time, and it was a reread for me, so I'm not going to include it in this tag. The best book besides The Road for me is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. If you're at all familiar with A Little Life, you know that it's very polarizing. So even though that was the best book for me this year, please enter with caution and look up trigger warnings before reading. It's a lot. So the second question is the best sequel I've read so far this year. I think I've only read 2 sequels. One of them I didn't care for, and I will not be continuing on with the series. But the one I did love was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo of the Six of Crows duology. I loved Six of Crows when I read it, but I loved Crooked Kingdom even more, so I definitely enjoyed that sequel. So the third question is a new release that you haven't read yet, but you want to. And I actually have 2 for this one. One is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, and the second one is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Alex Michaelides wrote The Silent Patient, which I read a couple years ago and absolutely loved. It's still one of my favorite thrillers, so I'm really looking forward to his next book. And Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. I loved both of those, especially Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, so I'm really looking forward to Malibu Rising. I actually already own The Maiden, so I'll be getting to that shortly. I actually have Malibu Rising on hold at the library, which is a really long wait time, but as soon as that's available to me, I will definitely be reading that. So the fourth question is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And for me, that's The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is a favorite author of mine. He wrote Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which is actually one of my favorite books of all time. And he wrote My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I loved, and Horror Store, which I also enjoyed, but definitely not as much as the other 2. I'm a huge fan of the way he incorporates this kind of campy, over-the-top humor with horror. So his books are both funny and scary, and I pretty much love everything he does, so I'm definitely looking forward to his new book. So the fifth question is your biggest disappointment, and these were by no means the worst books I've read this year, just the most disappointing to me. I had really high expectations for both of these books, and they really did not live up to the hype. The first one is Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and the second one is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. I know that for Mexican Gothic, a lot of people felt like it was too slow at the beginning. I actually really enjoy a slow burn from time to time, but my issue with the book is that the big reveal felt kind of dumb to me, and I just really didn't enjoy it. For Four Winds, I felt like it was just a really depressing book with no joy in sight, and I really didn't enjoy any of the characters or the storyline, so it was just a no for me. The sixth question is your biggest surprise, and that's Hollow Kingdom by Kira Buxton and Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. I think the reason these 2 were so surprising for me is because I didn't really hear any buzz about either book. I think I found both of them on one of those NPR Best Books of the Year lists, but you never know how those are going to pan out. I've had a lot of misses from books from lists like that. And I looked on Goodreads, and for the most part, the reviews were pretty mixed, so I had no idea what to expect going into it. Hollow Kingdom is probably the most unique book I've ever read, and Tender as the Flesh is a kind of dystopian horror book. I just found it incredibly thought-provoking as well as disturbing, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So I found both of those books to be phenomenal. They were actually both in my top 5 for the year, and so it was definitely a pleasant surprise. The seventh question is my favorite new author, and that is Friedrich Bachmann. So I read Anxious People and Beartown this year, and I loved both of those. Both of those got 5 out of 5 from me. With those books specifically, one of the things that I liked most was that they were ensemble cast books where all of the storylines were woven together perfectly. You cared about all of the different characters. So hopefully his other books are going to be like that as well, and I look forward to picking up some more books from him. The 8th question is your newest fictional crush. So that one's kind of difficult for me because when I think of fictional crush, I typically think of romance books. I've only read a few romance books this year and I didn't love any of them. So I'm going to have to go with Willem from A Little Life. The 9th question is your newest favorite fictional character. Hands down, ST from Hollow Kingdom. The 10th question is a book that made you cry, and no surprise here, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. When I say I cried, I mean I sobbed uncontrollably, probably for about the last 100 pages of the book. That was a lot. I actually cried in quite a few books this year, but another one I can think of off the top of my head is Anxious People by Friedrich Bachmann. That one wasn't as much of a sad cry, more just everything came together in a beautiful way, and it made me really emotional. The 11th question is a book that made you happy, and for me that's Futuristic Violence in Fancy Suits by David Wong. So it's a super violent book. It's this kind of action sci-fi book, but it was really outrageous, campy, and I just had a really good time reading it. So the 12th question is the most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. And for me, that's Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kavai Strong Washburn. It's just really colorful and it has all these metallic elements. I just think it's a really cool cover. And the 13th and final question is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I have so many on this list. I mean, I think over 100 on my TBR right now. But there are 2 that stick out in my mind, and that is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong and The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I've heard nothing but rave reviews about both of these, and so I cannot wait to read them. So that was everything for the mid-year Freakout Tag. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!